Free agency is almost over. We are almost to the real deal for Ball Mania 6. Let's get our strategy ready.
It's Short King Summer, dude. It just feels like no one in fantasy sports ever learns anything. Does he mistime it, or is Brock Bowers just a grown man? Brock Bowers is just a grown man. Dare I say, Rich, football might be back. In the words of Lane Johnson, this offense looks constipated. It's Short King Summer.
All right, my friends, we are here for yet another draft. Don't be worried if you are someone who watches the videos on this channel and you're saying, Davis, I thought you were streaming all of your big boards. Don't worry. We are still streaming all of our big boards. The little board is just about full. $100,000 to first place. Playing fantasy football, we are drafting out of the 7 slot in this draft, which actually is quite nice and is going to allow us to do quite a bit of strategy conversation, actually, because we will be choosing between CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, or Justin Jefferson in this room. I mean, it would be a true gift if we were able to get one Mr. Justin Jefferson in this, I would guess. There we go. We are not going to be able to. The video that came out yesterday was a little bit more edited, a little bit quicker. That is not going to be this draft. We are going to narrate the entire thing. And I actually have Nico Collins ranked ahead of Puka Nacua, and that is what I am going to do with this pick. Why am I going to do that? Well, very simple, guys. Davante Adams is still good. You might not think that Davante Adams is still good. You might have remembered having him on your fantasy team in the past, really any of the 3 seasons, and gotten frustrated with Davante Adams. But I think that he is probably going to take more off the table for Puka Nacua than, honestly, anyone really is projecting. If you look at Adams's results the last couple of years, there's not really much of a perceptible drop-off. Last season, 2.04 yards per route run on a 9.1 ADOT. The worst quarterback situation imaginable in 2023, the 11.1 ADOT, so much higher, 1.97 yards per route run. 2022, which is the first year in Las Vegas, probably the worst quarterback play he's ever had, 2.45 yards per route run. Davante Adams is still a very good player. And so if we grant the conceit that Davante Adams is still a very good player, it's very hard for me to think that Nacua is going to replicate what he did last year in terms of yards per route run and in terms of targets per route run. So we are going to go there. We are also going to select A.J. Brown over Drake London. We're going to do that for 2 reasons. The first being A.J. Brown is a grown man. But again, if we think about fantasy football as a projectable volume game, there's a lot of reasons to believe that it's about as bad as it gets for A.J. Brown last season. The Eagles refused to pass the ball. And in fact, last season, A.J. Brown only ran 475 routes. 475 routes, and was still able to rack up 1,200 yards and 9 touchdowns, despite, if you look at his PFF receiving grade, actually playing the best of his entire career, was able to generate a 90.9 receiving grade, 2.61 yards per route run. That was the 3rd highest tally of his career. I mean, A.J. Brown is just one of the best values on the board if we get Jalen Hurts doing anything like what he did really any of the other years of his career. We think of the Eagles as being this really insanely run-heavy team. But off the top of your head, ask yourself this question right now. How many pass attempts do you think Jalen Hurts had last season? How many times do you think he attempted a pass, didn't scramble, not dropbacks? It's definitely lower than you think. 361 passing attempts. And we still got those numbers from A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts did not even throw for 3,000 yards last season, and we still got a borderline wide receiver 1 season from A.J. Brown. If we get any defensive regression for the Eagles, if we get any red zone touchdown regression, for basically any kind of regression, offensive line regression, defensive regression, efficiency regression, tush push regression, which I don't think will happen, but is theoretically possible. I mean, I'll tell it to you like this. If I guaranteed you 500 Eagles passing attempts, where would you have A.J. Brown at? 500 passing attempts for the Philadelphia Eagles. Just to give you guys an idea, Joe Burrow threw 652 times. Jalen Hurts threw fewer times than Bryce Young, who only started 12 games. He threw fewer times than Tua, who started, basically 10 and a half games. Threw fewer times than Jordan Love, than Kirk Cousins. I mean, it's actually unbelievable how low the volume was for the Philadelphia Eagles. Start off around and sets us up with two staff as well. We won't be able to get to 42. We would feel totally comfortable with that. We will be able to take CJ Stroud effectively whenever we want. Stacking obviously is, I would say locking up your stacks and giving yourself multiple stack outs in best ball is sort of the most important thing that you can do. Particularly in these early tournaments where the prizes are so top heavy, we really do want to be giving ourselves the most amount of stacking options. Looks like we do have a couple auto drafters to our left, so we do need to be considering that. I'm also realizing that I think Breece Hall is perhaps a bit too high in my default rankings. Maybe I actually don't want to have him here because I believe with our next pick, we are going to take DJ Moore over Breece Hall. We're going to do that for two reasons. The first being, I believe the Chicago Bears offensive line, adding Drew Dahlman, Joe Thuney, and Jonah Jackson to their offensive line should basically completely reinvigorate the team. I think it'll be one of the best things that any team has done. In fact, we did the ship chasing draft on the ship chasing channel where we drafted the free agency moves. And I made the argument to Peter Overzet and to Patrick Carrain that the Bears revamping of their offensive line, trading for Thuney, trading for Jackson, and signing Drew Dahlman was actually the most impactful fantasy football free agency move, period. And I think I stick by it. Honestly, I do stick by it. And that adds a third quarterback for us in Caleb Williams. So now we actually don't, if we want to go a different direction at pick 42, we can. I'm also trying to balance my exposures out a little bit. I mostly would take Xavier Worthy there about 100% of the time. And then the reason why we passed on Breece Hall, very simple. I think a slight downgrade for both Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall with Justin Fields as their quarterback. Not that I am a Fields hater. In fact, I'm kind of the opposite of a Justin Fields hater. I like Justin Fields a good bit. But even Justin Fields' good seasons don't really come with much running back receiving. If you look at the 2022 season for Justin Fields, he targeted David Montgomery 40 times, and he targeted Khalil Herbert 12 times, which is, not nothing. It's fine. But Breece Hall has basically been a receptions merchant in his NFL career. Now, we are in a bit of an interesting spot here. I know I just made some good and convincing arguments for why you would want to be bullish on the Eagles passing game, but I don't think you want to double stack Jalen Hurts. So I am going to select Jalen Hurts here over Devonta Smith, over Ted McMillan, over Flowers, over Hampton, over Rome. One, there will probably be a wide receiver that we like coming back around. Two, I do want to be getting some good exposure to the elite quarterbacks. Just in general, I've argued pretty extensively against the elite quarterbacks on my streams here on the Davis Mattek YouTube channel, but I don't want to have zero of them. And there is a clear advantage you gain when you have an elite quarterback. You do get to week 17 and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, and Jalen Hurts, they're going to project for a lot of points. Just not really any way to argue that they're not going to be amongst the best point projectors. They certainly are going to project for a lot of points. And the bottom of the quarterback landscape, in my opinion, has been shaken up more than the market is potentially letting on. We could see Cam Ward sitting behind Russell Wilson. Anthony Richardson is not nearly as attractive. Darnold has gotten a little bit more attractive. Geno has gotten a little bit more attractive. Stafford has gotten a little bit more attractive. Shedeur Sanders has gotten far less attractive with all of the conversation around his draft capital. And my boy, Jackson Dart, you guys know I love Jackson Dart, and I do think he will get drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, but probably in a timeshare situation. You look at the market, who are the potential teams now that definitely would start Jackson Dart? So we take the Raiders off the board. They have Geno. I suppose it could be the New York Giants. It's not going to be the New York Jets. The Titans are definitely not going to take him at 1. We're not going to have him starting for the Browns. They'd be more likely a spot for Shedeur. So the spots for him to start week 1, I mean, they're basically gone now. You know, we're basically out of potential spots where he can start in week 1. And if we're out of potential spots that he can start in week 1, he can still be an okay pick in pre-draft NFL best ball, but not a pick that you are absolutely windmilling through, which is, again, it's fine to be taking Dart. All of that is to say, I do think the top tier of quarterbacks now are a little bit more appealing. You know, I think we're a little bit more into Josh Allen. We're a little bit more into Lamar. We're a little bit more into Daniels, a little bit more into Hurts. Frankly, actually less interested in Joe Burrow. And there is, you know, this is something that you will have to deal with if you're doing best ball drafts. You are going to have to deal with auto drafters, and we'll see what the auto drafting is going to do to this room. But for example, Land Tax, this user here now has double elite quarterbacks, and we'll probably end up with 4 or 5 quarterbacks, just the way that these rooms work, because human drafters are less likely to take a quarterback, and their human drafters are way less likely to take an uncorrelated quarterback. And I actually believe there are 3 teams here that are all auto drafting together, which means we can't count on fallers. And in fact, we will actually probably want to be reaching on players kind of as much as possible. We will want to be getting ahead of ADP because you don't want the room to dictate your team to you. You want to be dictating to the room. And in order to do that, we're going to have to get ahead to get the guys we want. So probably with our next pick, we are actually going to give the auto drafter a chance to take, you know, these Olave, these Waddles. And we're going to do a running back here. We're going to take our first running back. And given that we kind of don't actually care about any correlations here, there's not an eagle to take. We don't have to worry about a quarterback. We are just going to take Kenneth Walker, who I continue to be more bullish on the market for a couple reasons. The first being, undoubtedly, Sam Darnold is brought in to hand the ball off. You know, maybe there's some chance that Clint Kubiak came into this situation in Seattle thinking, you know, we're going to build this kind of extensive passing offense around Geno. It's going to be Lockett. It's going to be Metcalf. And Geno didn't want to stay. Geno didn't want to play for that money. Geno wanted a different situation. He wanted a different contract. Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly and the Las Vegas Raiders were willing to give him that. And there actually are quite a bit of rumors that the reason that Seattle parted ways with their 2024 offensive coordinator was that he was actually unwilling to run the ball. You know, that Ryan Grubb did not commit to the run enough. Seattle finished 29th in the NFL in rushing attempts, 28th in the NFL in rushing yards, but 17th in the NFL in yards per attempt. Meanwhile, they were 14th in the NFL in yards. And I think that kind of tells the story right there. The Seattle front office, the Seattle coach, you know, Mike McDaniel, he wants to run the ball. He wants to put his position, his defense in a position to be aggressive, not be playing on the back foot. He doesn't want to play these, you know, shootout style games. And I can hear you. You're saying in your head right now, you know, Kenneth Walker, he was not as good as Charbonnet. The coaching staff's going to want to give the ball to Charbonnet more. I mean, frankly, I don't see much evidence of that. When Walker was on the field, he was the starter. You know, if you look at his game logs from last season, there are very few spots, and particularly in the wins. I mean, the team made a concentrated effort to get him the ball in the passing game. 46 receptions, 53 targets. Those were, 6.5 yards per reception. Those are all well respectable numbers in the games that he did play. We are now going to select Quinshon Judkins. I think Judkins, who I actually have ranked ahead of Montgomery and Connor, gives us some real juice on this team. Judkins is a prospect that I find myself much higher on than the market. He did way better. He did way better at the combine than anyone would have anticipated. I actually kind of thought Judkins would come in weighing in a little bit small, and I did not think he would. In fact, I thought maybe he just wouldn't run at all, but that is not what happened. He came in with a 4.840. He weighed 218 pounds, and his mock draft status, if we look over at mock draft database, his mock draft stuff is way up, rightfully so. I anticipate him probably being a second round pick now. And he has actually been mocked in the first round, a few times. I don't think he will be a first round pick, but on average, his overall rank right now on mock draft database is 56th overall after posting the 4.48 at 218 pounds. And I've been very consistent on this. I think that the track record is very clear that this is probably the best running back class that we've seen since 2017. And if that is true, you want to invest in these guys just almost draft capital, landing spot agnostic, and I don't really see a reason not to try and get one of Judkins, Henderson, Caleb Johnson on basically every team, because there are so many, even after 10 days of free agency is up. Look at all these teams that have huge openings in their backfield. I'm not even talking about starters who might get benched. I'm talking like just massive openings for the Raiders, massive openings for the Broncos, our second running back for the Chargers, massive opening for the Browns, a second running back for the Bengals. Maybe if you're not a Samaje Perine believer, big opening for the Cowboys, big opening for the frankly the Chicago Bears. I am not counting Roschon Johnson and DeAndre Swift as safe there. So even if you're not maybe you don't like Judkins, maybe you don't like Henderson, maybe you don't like Caleb Johnson, maybe you don't like Hampton, I think you have to you got to just plug your nose and take your medicine there, because I don't know which one it's going to be, but one of these guys is very, very likely to be, kind of the guy you had to have in some of this pre-draft stuff. If I told you that Quinshon Judkins was a second round pick to the Las Vegas Raiders and his backfield mates are Sincere McCormick, Amir Abdullah, and Raheem Mostert, who signed a 1-year, $2.1 million contract, where are you taking him? I think you're taking him quite high, certainly higher than, in my opinion, higher than where he's going right now. And another reason why we took a running back is the running back tier fairly flat here, but the wide receivers are about to absolutely fall off a cliff. After Igbuka, Pearsall, I'm not a Brandon Ayuk guy. Funnily enough, ADP has actually come to meet me in the middle on Brandon Ayuk, but we would love to take Ricky Pearsall here. Pearsall or Igbuka, either one we are fine with. Pearsall is going to give us his second quarterback to target, so we are going to go in that direction because we're going to have two quarterbacks to pick from in the quarterback window. If you don't know what the quote-unquote quarterback window is, basically if you look at the historical research for best ball, and we are going to take Pearsall, if you look at the historical research for quarterback, the best hits both in terms of advance rate and in terms of finals performance, league winners, if you will, tend to come in rounds 8, 9, and 10. And I think it's pretty clear to see why that is. They're not elite quarterback prices. So you're not taking them over starters at the running back, wide receiver, and tight end position. You're taking them over reserve running backs, reserve wide receivers. I think that seems pretty evident. And the market all kind of decides that at the same time. Knicks, let's just look at quarterback ADP. So Knicks all the way through Love, there's not even a 2-round separation there. If I were to tell you that one of Knicks, Mayfield, Murray, Goff, Purdy, Herbert, Love, and I'll toss Drake May and Dak Prescott in there as well. If I told you that, and that's kind of roughly 1/3 of the quarterback market, if I told you that one of those guys was most likely to be the highest advance rate quarterback, would you agree or disagree with that sentiment? Because my guess is you probably would just, as someone who's watching this channel, you would just instinctively agree with that. You just be like, yeah, that sounds about right. And I think that should pretty clearly influence your decision making in these drafts. I think that you basically should be earmarking those for a quarterback. Now, I think on this team, we maybe try and push. Do we try and push it around? That's really what we have to ask ourselves. Do we think we can push it around? So we know we have 2 auto drafters to our left. So how many picks in between do we have? You know what? I think we don't push it. I think we do Purdy here. And we let. So that was a decision I made because I know that these 2 teams here are auto drafting, and there was certainly a chance that one of the quarterbacks that I would have wanted, whether it would have been Caleb Williams or whether it would have been Purdy, actually would have been wiped off the map. That's you certainly do need to be paying attention to what you have going on around you. Let me double check that ADP and make sure. Yeah, so Purdy's ADP 103. So I would say depending on what the other drafters are doing here, there was a pretty good chance that one of the 2 auto drafters would have got the quarterback I wanted, completely unstacked, completely uncorrelated. But that is, again, what you will find with the auto drafting. Actually, and you know what? I missed this, but Caleb Williams went to the Roma Dunze drafter at the 5-6 turn anyway. So I am actually extra grateful there. I was not paying attention to the draft room. So there you go. Sometimes idiot YouTubers don't always know what they're doing either. But had I known that, it actually would have made me extra convicted in taking Purdy there, because my only other quarterback stack available is CJ Stroud, a guy I have. Well, actually, I guess I have him ranked 127. He goes pick 126. But I guess just instinctively, I think of Stroud as kind of a give up pick. The team, just excised their starting left tackle and lost another one of their starting linemen in free agency, has yet to replace them. Kind of unclear what their plan is on offensive line. And CJ Stroud was already one of the most sacked and pressured quarterbacks in all of football last season. So it's not necessarily a spot that we are feeling great about. I actually, even regardless of the changes for the Houston offense, with getting rid of Bobby Slowick, I think I still feel more pessimistic than the market. They hired Nick Caley as their offensive coordinator, who previously served as the Los Angeles Rams passing game coordinator and tight ends coach. So he's from that McVay tree that we do love to target. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but if you give me the option between having the Pearsall Purdy stack, something I've already seen be productive, and in fact I saw Purdy, basically be the guy you had to have in 2024. I'd rather just have Nico all on his own without worrying about where he was at relative to my stack. And now we've freed ourselves up to either take our first tight end, Rashid Shaheed, or Marvin Mims, all of whom would be phenomenal picks for us. And I believe we are going to see Jonnu Smith get auto drafted here. So if anyone out there is a big Jonnu guy. They're going to be a little bit bummed to see that. But with a wide receiver room of Nico, AJ Brown, DJ Moore, Ricky Pearsall, we could probably feel comfortable taking Tyler Warren. We don't need a quarterback. Maybe some argument for Pacheco. We are actually just, you know what? We are just going to take Tyler Warren. We're probably going to take 3 tight ends on this. Actually, we are certainly going to take 3 tight ends on this team. Now, Tyler Warren is an interesting prospect where there's a little bit of pattern matching happening where, Brock Bowers was so good last season. He was going in the same part of the draft. So he certainly has to be, this phenomenal pick. And I don't think you can say that. He never really played at Penn State until his final season. First season above 19% dominator rating was his 4th season. It was the first time he had more than 400 yards, although he was a good touchdown producer. Did score some rushing touchdowns as well. They used him in kind of these creative ways. I like Tyler Warren. I certainly do not like Tyler Warren near as much as I did Bowers. I think they are very different prospects. I think Warren is likely actually similarly athletic. Well, maybe not similarly athletic, but similarly athletically timed. And he has that cool story. Someone asked him at the combine, why do you wear 44? And it was because his dad told him to run like John Riggins, which is cool. We are up, and we are going to take Travis Hunter. You might be asking yourself, Davis, why would you take Travis Hunter? I mean, Travis Hunter is going to be a cornerback in the NFL, isn't he? The first of which I would say, he's very unlikely to just be a cornerback. The second being, I don't really care if he is part-time a quarterback. In Dwayne McFarland's supermodel, you can check that out over at fantasylife.com. He shows up as, one of the best wide receiver prospects, period. Even if before adjusting for draft capital or anything like that, almost every NFL scout and team that was asked about Hunter at the combine, under no uncertain terms said, we view him definitely as a wide receiver. Of course, the Tennessee Titans, who pick at 1, said they view him as a cornerback because guess what? Of course, a bad team is going to view Travis Hunter as a cornerback. Wide receivers make more money. Wide receivers get more TV time. Wide receivers get more attention. There are many, many reasons why he would prefer to be a wide receiver as opposed to being a cornerback. I think my most likely projection for Hunter is probably that he is a part-time player on both sides of the ball to start his rookie season, but he's just going to end up being a better wide receiver. I watch a lot of college football, and not that you should take my opinion as, one-to-one truth. He looked like a better wide receiver to me than a cornerback. He just looks like he moves so smoothly. These are some of his comps over on the RotoViz Prospect Box Score Scout Simulator. First thing you need to note, this is a very productive player. Scored 30% of Colorado's receiving touchdowns in his career, had 25% of their yards, had 30% of the yards in his final season, scored 1.15 touchdowns per game. It puts him in ranges, and let's hear, just for the sake of this exercise, let's give him the 5th draft pick instead of the 1st draft pick. Maybe I'm being a little bit coy there, although I think that is fairly possible. So we have Neighbors as a top comp, Garrett Wilson as a top comp, Jamar Chase. Interesting, Tavon Austin. Obviously, I don't think they're very similar at all, although not that far apart in weight. Ted Ginn Jr., who people forget was the 9th overall pick in the NFL draft. Sammy Watkins, who people forget was the 4th overall pick. John Ross, Darius Hayward-Bay, Chris Olave, and Odell Beckham Jr. So I think you get a good kind of coloring of the rainbow there in terms of the range of outcomes. I think Travis Hunter's bust in terms of playing ability is certainly different than some of the busts on that list. if Travis Hunter's not a good wide receiver, he'll probably end up being okay at corner. So it's not the same as being a bust of a draft pick, I don't think. But all of that is a very long way to say, I mean, you might be getting a guy in Travis Hunter who ends up in Best Ball Mania 6 being a 4th round pick, a 5th round pick, a 6th round pick, and we just took him as our 5th wide receiver in the 10th round. I mean, that is the kind of thing that is just, it's kind of hard to pass up. And now he's our wide receiver 5, so maybe we only take 6 or 7 wide receivers on this team. I mean, our wide receiver firepower is absurd. We can kind of take whoever we want at running back here. We are going to pass on Dallas Goedert at tight end. We are going to pass on Likely. I'm comfortable with Bigsby here. Yeah, we're going to take Tank Bigsby. Tank Bigsby, I think, is an easy click there. Either the lead back or the handcuff for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Of course, the Jacksonville Jaguars could add a running back in the draft, but frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if the running back they add ends up behind Tank Bigsby, but maybe even ahead of ETN. I think how bad ETN was last season is it's kind of hard to believe. And Bigsby was quite good. I mean, look how bad Bigsby was as a rookie. 10 missed tackles forced as a rookie, 46 missed tackles forced on 168 attempts, 2.6 yards per carry to 4.6 yards per carry. No breakaway runs at all. No breakaway runs at all. I mean, that is just kind of unbelievable. To 242 yards of breakaway runs, a 31.6 breakaway percentage, which is quite strong. Not as involved as a receiver, which I suppose is sort of interesting. You know, we do want a guy who is able to do both. But basically, Bigsby was good. And then ETN, outside of the one really strong season that he had, and it was a very strong season, was absolutely brutal. Only 17 missed tackles forced, 2.48 yards after contact average, only 6 breakaway runs. And this is ETN. You know, this is supposed to be a really good breakaway runner. I mean, it was far and away the worst performance of ETN's career. The 2022 season was good. The 2023 season was bad, but had a lot of volume. So Bigsby is kind of one of those comfy clicks in that range. And there are plenty of running backs that we can take here as well. I mean, maybe an argument that we actually could have taken a wide receiver with that last pick, because we are in a very strong range at running back now. I actually was going to take Bashel Tootin, who is one of my favorite rookie running backs, a 9.5 RAS for Tootin at the combine. But we don't really care about the difference between these guys. We can take Devin Neal. We can take Benson. I actually do need to move Rico Dowdle down in my rankings just a smidge. We are just going to take Devin Neal here, top available running back by average draft position. Again, maybe an argument that we could have taken a tight end there. I think there was a little bit of a tier break. So why Devin Neal, Davis? What do you like about Devin Neal? Well, the first thing that I like about Neal was he was just extremely productive. That is far and away the first thing I'm going to look for one of these non-Alabama, non-Georgia, non-Ohio State running backs. You know, if you don't go to one of these crazy schools where you can get away, like your team doesn't play competitive games, your other teammates are really good, I want to see high production. It's exactly what Devin Neal did. Crazy good as a rookie, 61%, or a freshman, 61% dominator rating in 2021. Did take a step back in 2022, only 43% dominator rating, but still very good raw production. Then really good raw production in 2023. That was when Jalen Daniels was injured and Jason Bean was playing quarterback, 6.3 yards per carry in the Big 12. Then really took it to another level in 2024. 80% backfield dominator rating, 24 receptions for 254 yards. He had the crazy game against Colorado, 33% of his team's total yards. And if I give him a second round draft capital, his sims are fairly good. I suppose it would depend on how you feel about Zach Moss. I tend to think Zach Moss is actually a good comp. Zach Moss was a really good prospect. Didn't end up being a very good NFL player, but was a very good prospect. Then we have David Montgomery, who's kind of always someone you want to show up in your comps list. Just well-rounded, kind of did everything well at Iowa State. The aforementioned Tank Bigsby, Royce Freeman, who was, again, a very good prospect, not a very good NFL player. Amir Abdullah. Is it crazy that I almost just said jury's still out? Tajay Spears, I think a pretty good NFL player. Mikal LaShore, we'll never know because he blew out his Achilles. Blake Corum, we don't know yet. Cam Akers, again, another guy who blew out his Achilles. And the thing at running back is it's also team dependent. It is also volume dependent. But Neal can pass block. Neal weighed in at 218, which is more than I thought he was going to weigh in at. And he's a productive player who is, I think, fast enough. A little bit disappointing to see Pitts going there. I guess I probably should have assumed he was going to go, and we're not going to be able to take Ferguson either because he is going to get auto-drafted away from us. So we are going to be a little bit behind at tight end on this team. I suppose if you were going to pick a position to be a little bit behind on, tight end would probably be the one that you would choose to be behind on. And maybe we even take 4. I've not experimented structurally with taking 4 tight ends yet in a 20-round draft, but I think it's probably fine by and large. I don't think it's a bad idea. So with this next pick, we have 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 5 wide receivers, and a tight end. Structurally, this is going to be a very easy pick for us. I thought it was going to be a running back, but we are actually just going to take Jaden Higgins, assuming that he does not get sniped from us, because he's kind of the last of a great tier at wide receiver. And, or do we take Thielen? I guess we don't need the floor at all. So we're going to take Jaden Higgins, and we can talk a little bit about why. First reason being, Jaden Higgins is absolutely steaming up in terms of prospect value. Would not surprise me at this point to see Jaden Higgins being a first-round pick. His projected round, if you look at the aggregate of mock drafts, is still in the second round. But if you look at more recent ones, and maybe we can check a little search out here over at Grinding the Mocks. If you look at recent mock drafts, it's looking more and more likely that he might end up being a first-round pick. And I would not blame any team for making him a first-round pick. So if we can take a look at this here right now, his draft stock has flown all the way up. This was not even that long ago that he was being viewed as a UDFA, round 6, round 7. He's now expected on average to be a round 2 pick, and there are many sources that are giving him, a legitimate chance to be a first-round pick. Expected draft position as the wide receiver 5, expected draft position ranked 46 overall. Getting a wide receiver who is on average expected to go 46 overall, that is a huge win. And Higgins does, it's interesting. Jalen Knoll also had a great combine, which actually makes Higgins's production look a little bit better, right? Don't you feel a little bit better about Higgins's production, knowing that Jalen Knoll was so athletic? And the comps for him are mostly good. Randall Cobb, good. Paul Richardson, not as good. I believe Higgins weighed in at 215, and he did run a sub 4.540 at his size, which is, that is, it's very, very strong. And another reason why we were comfortable taking Higgins there is whatever running back we take right here is going to be one that we like, and we've kind of already decided to punt it off a little bit at tight end. We can get Hunter Henry, we can get Mike Gesicki, we can get Brenton Strange. So we are happy to take, we are happy to take Ray Davis here. We are happy to take Tyler Algier here. Probably on this team, we should take Ray Davis. Ray Davis is just a good player. We really like him. He's locked in, I think, as a good handcuff. The re-signing of Ty Johnson maybe has us liking him a little bit less, but these are the comps now with the updated weight and size. Torrey Smith, AJ Brown, Anthony Miller, Christian Kirk, Rashad Perryman, Chris Godwin, Stephen Hill, my old heartthrob Ruben Randall, T. Higgins, Carlos Henderson. Remember Carlos Henderson? Probably have to be a real fantasy football sicko to remember Carlos Henderson. But Jaden Higgins, just him and Jalen Noel both are just about as good as it gets. You know, you really cannot possibly complain if those are your rookie wide receivers. And we're probably good on rookie wide receivers now. Rule of thumb for me, kind of max 2. And really, you know, there's maybe a better, larger conversation to have about rookies in the little board. You know, is it good? Is it bad? Should you take a lot? Should you take none? And, you know, I think the correct answer is always, well, it depends. You know, there's this extrapolation that you can take from the world of poker. I don't know if you guys are big into poker, but you know, there used to be real clear answers in poker. You know, always do this with ace king, or always do this when you're under the gun, or always do this when someone 3 bets into you and you have a 3 of a kind, right? And then there was this software that players started using called solvers. The big one is called PioSolver. And basically what a solver does is it runs, you know, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 simulations of the hand you're in. And it tells you, okay, this percentage of the time you should call, this percentage of the time you should fold, this percentage of the time you should raise, this percentage of the time you should check raise. And I think best ball is a lot like that, where the answer is it depends. So if you ask me, how many rookies should I take? My answer would be it depends. I mean, how risk averse are you? Are you a risk averse drafter, or are you not risk averse? Is the money doesn't matter to you? You don't care if you don't advance any teams. You just want to put yourself in a position to win. Well, if that was true, if you don't care at all and you just want to win, I would tell you probably should be taking a lot of rookies, because they're the ones who have the greatest ability to generate closing line value. And because fantasy football is a relatively efficient, not a perfectly efficient, but a relatively efficient market, getting a lot of closing line value is very good. You know, if you get a lot of closing line value, that means that your team is going to have more projected points than many of the other teams in your draft, right? It's really that simple. So just let's go conceptually. Okay, Jaden Higgins, and I'm not even saying this is going to happen, but just go down this alleyway with me. Let's pretend Jaden Higgins is a first-round pick to the Houston Texans. Where does Jaden Higgins' ADP go in Best Ball Mania 6? Well, it's going to go a lot higher. I mean, he's probably going to be an 8th-round pick, 7th-round pick, something like that. He's definitely going to go ahead of Christian Kirk. So if he goes ahead of Christian Kirk, I mean, yeah, you're just going to expect him to score a lot of points. You're going to expect him to be a pretty valuable player. And so it doesn't mean that you should be building these all rookie teams. And we've seen examples of both things, right? We have seen last year's winner had 10 rookies. The winner the year before of the big board had no rookies. We are going to take Hunter Henry, just very boring, stable value. I mean, the Patriots have done nothing in free agency. I mean, even if the second after this video comes out, Cooper Kupp signs with the New England Patriots, nothing matters. I mean, the only thing that would matter, I guess, would be if they pulled off some trade that I don't see. Like, maybe, I don't know, what would have to happen? What would have to happen for Hunter Henry to not get 100 targets? Trading for T. Higgins and signing Cooper Kupp, then maybe he doesn't get 100 targets or you know, average 4 receptions per game. I mean, last season, only 2 touchdowns after scoring 6 touchdowns the year before. But I'm buying on Drake May. And the Patriots were, you know, basically like the least useful offense. Alex Van Pelt was basically like the least useful play caller in the whole of the National Football League last year, which actually, frankly, feels crazy to say, but that was the case. So Hunter Henry is the type of pick that you have to make. It's so funny. We just got done talking about the rookies and how do you win and how do you get closing line value. But sometimes best ball is a game where the boring guys get you through. One of the things I've been internally thinking about is like, there's a reason that, Michael Leone and Justin Herzig always have a bunch of teams in the finals. Why is that? Well, the reason why that is, and I have to take, I guess I don't have to, but I am going to take Shedeur Sanders here, because if I don't, I'm not going to have a third quarterback, and one of these auto drafters will get him from me. One of the things that these, really good best ball players do, that Leone does, that Herzig does, that these guys who advance a bunch of teams, structure their teams very well, and we make fun of Leone about it, but what he does is he takes advantage of that boring value. He takes advantage of, no one wants this guy who just projects really well in my stuff. I've double and triple checked the projection. The projection makes sense. The projection accounts for the floor, the median, and the ceiling. And it's a good pick, and projectable volume doesn't always work. There's a reason why the zero running back strategy exists and why it makes money. But sometimes, particularly at positions like tight end, where, I don't know, man, how many weeks did you look at your tight end room and be like, man, I would kill for the 8.4 points that Hunter Henry just posted against the Bengals this week? I know, just looking anecdotally at my best ball teams many times, that has been the case. And we are probably going to take 3 tight ends on this team anyways. We can probably take another moon ball now that we have selected Hunter Henry. We probably can take a Rondé Gadsden, Elijah Arroyo, whatever. And in fact, actually, I was going to say I would love to take Mike Gesicki, but Mike Gesicki is going to get auto drafted before we went. So I took Shedeur because his auto draft or his default ADP is 192, and the 2 auto drafting teams are sitting there at 194 and 196. That's something to be very aware of if you are in these rooms. Just, you got to be aware of your surroundings. And it's tough if you're multi-tabling, and I know I obviously will be multi-tabling these drafts, in once hot best ball summer comes. That'll be a big part of my game. Love to walk the dog and auto draft these teams. But you can get locked out of the guys you want. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not going to get Mike Gesicki because he went on the plane there for me. But I am happy to have gotten my third quarterback, and now I need to take a running back. With a running back room of Ken Walker, Quinshon Judkins, Tank Bigsby, Devin Neal, and Ray Davis, I probably need... In fact, I think this is actually going to be a 7 running back team. We're going to do 7 running backs, 7 wide receivers on this team. I'm actually need to move Elijah Mitchell down because Kareem Hunt re-signed with the Kansas City Chiefs, 1 year, $1.5 million. Elijah Mitchell got $3.5 million. You guys can see me waffling in real time about what to do with my rankings. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe let the room make that decision for me. And I'm going to take Brashard Smith, again, embracing... Actually, I'm going to take Damian Martinez. We need a little bit more of a grinder. When you have Devin Neal and Ray Davis, who are clearly, contingent value style guys, I think maybe we want a guy... maybe Damian Martinez just gets drafted by the Steelers in the second round, and I just locked up the Steelers starting running back. I mean, I don't know if it's that possible, but it certainly does feel fairly likely. Damian Martinez, I think, has gotten a little bit lost in the shuffle. By the way, we're so excited about so many of these guys who had really, really good combines. And Damian Martinez didn't have a terrible combine, but he had a good combine. And a good combine at Damian Martinez's weight is, I think, pretty valuable. He ran a 4.51 at his size. So that's pretty strong. I mean, just running a 4.51 as a big guy, like that was a better one than Caleb Johnson. So he weighed in at 217 at the combine, which definitely, by the way, means that he lost some weight and trained, because he weighed in at, you guys are never going to guess this, 233 at the Senior Bowl. But his comps are actually quite strong. Darius Geis, Kendre Miller, Jonathan Brooks, Blake Corum, Eddie Lacy, Stephen Ridley, Devonta Freeman, Hassan Haskins. I actually do not remember DeLon Carter. Maybe I do. Darrington Evans, a bunch of guys who impacted or played in the NFL. Now, Darius Geis, maybe the less said about him, the better. But Damian Martinez, I think, is kind of the platonic ideal of a running back 6 on one of these teams. Now, we need to take a wide receiver, and we probably, with the back-to-back rookies, we just want to take an adult. And while De'Ami Brown and Gabe Davis have steamed up due to an ostensible projected volume, we are going to take Jalen Tolbert, who, as of this morning, and I'm recording this on Friday, March 14th, I mean, basically has no competition on the Cowboys. Not sure who could possibly keep Jalen Tolbert from at least being the wide receiver 3 on the Cowboys. Even if they did take Golden or Tet, their wide receiver room right now is CeeDee, Mingo, Tolbert, Jalen Brooks, Ryan Flournoy, and Kevontae Turpin. Kevontae Turpin is just, he's just not going to be a full-time player, which is fine. Not everyone has to be a full-time player. And Tolbert, had useful games. If you told me if you just told me that Tolbert runs back 610 yards and 7 touchdowns, I might have I might have 100% actually at round 18, round 19, round 20 prices. Not correlated, not stacked or anything here, but just a really good pick. And maybe this is not how the market is doing it, and we didn't get a chance to take Elijah Mitchell, by the way. Bombadil, great username. Big fan of that username. If you're watching this, Mr. Tom Bombadil, you never know. I actually think there's a lot of value in taking these, quote unquote adults, as some of your final round picks. And I think that's, I think that is exactly what Jalen Tolbert is. He's definitely not going to be a league winner. Jalen Tolbert's not going to have 1,100 yards and 10 touchdowns. Maybe he has 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. Maybe Dak stays healthy for the entire season, gets to play against, 2 bad defenses in the Commanders and the Giants twice a year. I guess his week 17 game is a coin flip to be in a dome, given that, the Cowboys, I guess it's kind of a fake dome, famous, the glare there, in the Dallas Cowboys arena. But Tolbert, I think, is, a strong way to round out a wide receiver room of Nico Collins, AJ Brown, DJ Moore, Ricky Pearsall, Travis Hunter, Jaden Higgins, and Jalen Tolbert. And that is going to be our final wide receiver. We are not going to take 8 wide receivers on this team because I need another tight end, which could be Fannin, which could be Arroyo, could be Mason Taylor, could be Chig, could be Luke Musgrave, could be Theo Johnson. Actually, Theo Johnson does add to my theoretical stack, if I think Shadur has a chance to be a New York Giant, which I do. So I don't really care about the difference between those guys. I'm just going to take any running back here. And I think on this one, Keaton Mitchell makes a lot of sense. A guy who I think is very likely to be just on the NFL roster. They held on to him last year. They activated him off the IR. He played for them a little bit in the playoffs. Interesting that Sean Tucker is starting to steam up a little bit. Now I do probably need to balance my exposures in this range a little bit more than I have been, but I am going to take Keaton Mitchell, just a guy who I feel pretty confident is going to be on the 53. Being on the 53 is fairly valuable. Be really good if Valang just snapped me off right here. Really would not feel that appreciative about that, but yeah, it would be another rookie lottery ticket, Raheem Sanders here, or Keaton. I think they're very similar. Keaton, I at least know, is good. Keaton, as a rookie, Keaton led the NFL in defensive yards over rushing yards over expectation, on like 40 rushes or whatever. So pretty sick there. Final pick in this one is going to be a tight end. If this was a stream, I would basically let you guys decide, but we have Tyler Warren, we have Hunter Henry. Noah Fant could fit on this one, just as like a really boring guy, 0% chance to be a league winner, honestly. Cole Rusk, a guy I've never heard of. Luke Musgrave could fit. Schoonmaker could fit. Basically, we just need a guy. We just need a body to get us. I mean, frankly, if this guy we take right here scores 4 touchdowns, we're happy with it. There's not a 49er to take. The Eagles actually did just sign a tight end the other day. Let's see if I can remember who it is. Harrison Bryant was the one they took the other day, because the rumors are that they are probably going to be trying to trade Dallas Goedert. Maybe that makes them more likely to take a rookie tight end. There we go. I think I just talked myself into taking another rookie tight end with my final pick. Yep, I think we did. I think we are going to take Mason Taylor, assuming he does not get snapped off. If Mason Taylor does get snapped off, we'll probably take Michael Mayer. But there we go. B-Dodge, who is a friend of the channel, he might do it. I feel confident with a third tight end here over another running back. I mean, honestly, with this running back room, there could be an argument. It's a pretty thin running back room. So we're going to take Mason Taylor. If you haven't seen Mason Taylor run the gauntlet, by the way, you should check it out. Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Shadur Sanders at quarterback, Ken Walker, Quinshawn Judkins, Tank Bigsby, Devin Neal, Ray Davis, Damian Martinez, Keaton Mitchell at running back, Nico Collins, A.J. Brown, DJ Moore, Ricky Pearsall, Travis Hunter, Jaden Higgins, Jalen Tolbert at wide receiver, Tyler Warren, Hunter Henry, Mason Taylor. So we got the Hurts, A.J. Brown, the Purdy Pearsall. Maybe too many rookies. I can understand. Tell me down below, do you think I took too many rookies? What's your strategy with rookies in the big and little boards? If you're watching this, please make sure to like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, thank you very much for watching.
It's Short King Summer, dude. It just feels like no one in fantasy sports ever learns anything. Does he mistime it, or is Brock Bowers just a grown man? Brock Bowers is just a grown man. Dare I say, Rich, football might be back. In the words of Lane Johnson, this offense looks constipated. It's Short King